Right, so we're going to work through one final central limit theorem problem in section 7.3, and then once we get through using our central limit theorem to answer this, we'll also talk a little bit about a couple of other ways that we could have answered the same problem. So according to the American Veterinarian Medical Association, 36.5% of all of Americans own a dog. Suppose a random sample of 200 Americans is taken. Would it be surprising? Remember, surprising means more than 2 standard deviations or 2 standard errors from the mean, to find that 45% of the sample owned a dog. Okay, so N is all Americans. That's our population. Our lowercase n is our sample. So 200 randomly selected Americans. Our P, 36.5%, right, which we're going to write as 0.365. And what we want to know is P, probability of P hat greater than or equal to 0.45 surprising. Okay. All right, so we're going to pause for just a second here and talk a little bit about our empirical rule. Right, so surprising means more than 2 standard errors or 2 standard deviations away from our mean. So if we think about this, if we go back to our basic, right, normal curve. Right, so we have our mean in the middle. So our mean is mu. And as we go out to the right and to the left, right, we go up and down by standard deviations. So I'm going to tilt this for just a second too. So we have mu plus 1 sigma, mu plus 2 sigma, mu plus 3 sigma, mu minus 1 sigma, mu minus 2 sigma, mu minus 3 sigma. Right, so that shows our mean and then our standard deviations. Right, and what we know is we know that in here, in the middle, between 2 standard deviations, there is, my picture is a little lopsided, but there is 95% here in the middle. So if there's 95% here in the middle, then over to these 2 sides on the left and on the right, we are going to have basically 2.5%, right, in both sides left over here. So in this question, we're asked, is this surprising? So what we're really being asked is our probability that P hat is greater than or equal to 0.45, right, that it's bigger than 45%, less than 2.5%. Right, we want to know what is the probability of that percent landing in that little portion over there. Okay, so our conditions, again, we're going to skip. We're going to assume that they are met. Our P, 0.365. Right, so we're going to plug that into our standard error formula. Our sample size is 200. Gives us a standard error of 0.034. So then we're going to go to our curve and we're going to label it using our mean and standard error. So 0.365, 0.399, 0.433, 0.467, going the other way, 0.331, 0.297, 0.263. 45 would be over here. So we're just going to shade in this little tail. Okay. So we're going to go to our normal calculator and we're going to find our probability. So the probability that our sample will have 45% dog owners is about 0.6%. Right, so that comes from StatCrunch. Again, we used our mean, we used our standard deviation, which is our standard error. We put in the probability that P is greater than 0.45 up at the top, and we get 0.6%. So we are going to say, since the probability is less than 2.5%, yes, it is surprising. All right, now, there's a lot of different ways that we could answer this question, right? So that's just one of the ways that we could do it. So we're going to go through, kind of start with the same scenario and just talk about two different ways that we could have answered the question. So an alternate method, we could just strictly use our empirical rule. And then we're also going to talk about a method using our z-score. Strictly using our empirical rule, if we go look at our little picture here and we take our mean plus 2 standard deviations, notice that we get 0.433. So where we shaded was already past those 2 standard deviations. So that means that it is surprising, because surprising means it's past those 2 standard deviations. So if we just take our mean, which was 0.365, plus 2 standard deviations, so 2 times 0.034, again we got 0.433. Right? Since 45% is more than 43.3%, which is 2 standard deviations, and we'll say 2 standard errors above the mean, yes, it would be surprising. So the idea is here we wouldn't necessarily have had to go through the entire process using our normal curve. Just knowing that we were outside those 2 standard deviations would be enough to say it was surprising. Another thing we could do is we could actually find our z-score. So once we have our mean and our standard error, we could take 0.45 minus our p, which was 0.365, divided by our standard error that we found, which was 0.034. That gives us a z-score of 2.5. That also tells us that we are more than 2 standard deviations away from the mean. So we could also say, since the z-score is greater than 2, yes, it is surprising. So same question, same answer, 3 different ways. So as you're working through problems in the section, there may be something that takes a little bit to interpret. and feel free to do so in whatever way is easiest for you.